Let's talk a little bit about gold and its prospect for the near-term future. And I'm going to throw out some information some people probably already know already, but I'm going to try to be quick about this. But not only gold, but let's also talk about the two other silvery metals that aren't silver but share its silvery color, which is platinum and palladium. Now, with gold, what I say is going to happen is if you don't have precious metals or you're in the right area of the stock market, you're going to get totally screwed. There's probably going to be the financial collapse. I think that's a fairly good bet, or else they're going to hyperinflate their way out of problems due to excess government debt. You know, the conspiracy theories out there that this debt problem is being created to institute a new financial world order. Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a conspiracy theory. That's probably legit. And it's probably not going to be such a nice changeover when your gold goes up to a certain point to change it over into the new world order currency. But that's getting ahead of myself. For now, it looks like gold is a very solid investment. As a matter of fact, as it's been creeping up in the last month or so, it's still a buy and a half. And most people in the middle class are totally missing out. Now, I think maybe this information some people know. They know that some of the biggest heavy hitters out there have been going deep into gold. And what they're doing is, like one of my favorite guys out there, George Soros, he nearly tripled his stake in Spider Gold Trust, GLD, during the second quarter of 2012. So at the end of the first quarter, 3/31, March 31st, he had 319,000 shares. As of the end of the second quarter, 6/30, June 30th, he had 884,000 shares. So he's making a heavy bet for a reason. He doesn't want to lose. Now, with George Soros, he didn't hit it perfect, but he sure made a lot of money. He actually got out of his gold holdings in the first quarter of 2011, early on. And it went up more during the first quarter, and then it finally crashed. And then it went up to its record high, I think it was September 6th, up to $1,921. So if he actually would have held on for so many more months, he would have been up that much higher. But, he made out like a fat rat, and he's got a lot of money, and I'm sure wherever he put the money, probably won too. This guy, a lot of people don't like him, but he drops hints. I notice he drops hints. And this is a major hint. I'm going to comment a little more about this because some people are saying, caution, caution, caution. A lot of people are thinking, this is a surefire sign gold is going up, and some saying caution, caution, caution. Well, I'm going to say other reasons I think gold's going up despite the caution flags and what the caution flags they're saying they are. Now, Paulson and Company upped its shares in Spider Gold also by 26% for the same time period. So he didn't go up by almost 3 times or 300% almost. He went up by 26%. So he's dumping more in gold too. Now, Mark Faber's been buying more gold. Anytime it dips, he buys more. He's over 25% invested in physical gold. He's not even using the Spider shares. So he's like hardcore gold bug, if you want to call it that. But he's not a gold bug. He's a smart investor. I want to differentiate between the two because at one point in time, gold is not going to be a smart investment. It is right now. Somebody had no gold right now. If they put 50% of their money into gold, that's a lot, right? You're really not going to screw up. You're going to do pretty damn good in that asset class, even though it's been up for so long. It could pull back a little bit, but not even like a long term. I'm talking 6 months to a year. There's going to be a lot of financial crises that are going to pop up that's going to bring gold up. Now, another thing to consider, and I think this is old news to people, but I want to get on a couple new things and my twist on things. Gold is a Tier 1 asset. They said this back, a couple months ago. Bond rating from the credit rating agencies like Moody and S&P aren't considered when calculating a bank reserve requirements. They're going by what Tier 1 assets you have, and that is gold. They're not mentioning silver, platinum, and palladium. But, I think those metals are actually probably going to do better than gold once the things start heating up. So in other words, the translation of that statement is the credit agencies themselves are effectively junk. They're too corrupt to rely on. So if you got gold, you got money. If you got other crap out there that's called paper financial instruments and some credit agencies saying it's AAA, that doesn't mean anything because it's a pile of talk. It's paper versus real. You know, I'm from Missouri. Show me the gold, right? Gold is a zero risk asset with no credit ratings at all to worry about. Simple logic all the way. Can't refute it. Now, the one thing I was going to say, we're putting some caution flags up there, is that they're saying a lot of people that are jumping into gold, they're waiting for QE. They're counting on QE. They're counting on QE from Ben Bernanke. Or they're counting on monetary easing from, the ECB, the European Central Bank. They're counting on it. Well, you know what? Maybe that's going to happen, maybe not. I think it's going to happen. And I think, I said the American markets are like kind of high considering all the other factors I pointed out before. Like the manufacturing index and the garbage index being low and all this type of stuff, yet the stocks are high. And then we got this drought situation, which ain't helping the economy in general, including the oil economy in the United States, which was one bright spot. So I don't know how the hell the stocks are so high, so there might be a correction. But a 10% correction in the equities would make Bernanke move. There you go. There's your QE. So, but say there was no QE. It was, say it never happens. It's not going to matter. You know why there's going to be so much buying pressure on gold? It's going to come from China. China is looking to establish their currency as a world reserve currency. They're going to bring their gold reserve status, their gold reserves, up on par to what the United States has. So, they actually have an interest in keeping the prices low so they can acquire it cheap, quite obviously. But, how long is that game going to be able to be played? There's only so much gold going around. If people want to sell it, but, what I'm saying is, they're going to have to, the buyer's going to have to pay the price. So a lot of people are probably holding on for dear life to gold. Now, I want to point out a couple things about the other silvery metals. Like, one, this is palladium. Now, palladium hit a peak of around 870 or something around there during early 2011. Now, this is a chart basically going from January 2011 to present. Now, you notice here, they had this big slam down in the commodities on the end of September. Why? Why do they consider palladium have to have margin rate increases? Why? That's one question I always put to my mind, and I say to myself, there is a reason. You talk about a conspiracy against silver. There's more of a conspiracy against palladium and platinum. It's not, you can make all the, a lot of people ignore these two things big time, but looking at the rarity of palladium, it's like basically 20 times more difficult. You get 20 times less palladium pulled out of the ground than gold, right? And then well over 95% of it gets consumed. So I don't know. I mean, anything could drive this metal up through the roof. And I got a feeling that's what's going to happen at one time. This stupid metal's going to go up like 10 times. I don't know about silver doing that. It might because of the middle class. If you get enough of these silver bloggers out there and these silver gurus out there telling everybody the sky's falling, buy metal, buy silver, the middle class are going to be the ones buying it up at 200 plus an ounce. They're going to be the ones. Because they'll be looking at that curve going up for all this time. You can't lose. They're the guys going to get slaughtered in the long run. I know this. That's the reality behind it. But in the case of a conspiracy against a metal, it's probably palladium. And I'd say that most of the conspiracy comes from where the source of it is from, Russia, Norilsk Mine. And They dumped a lot of palladium on the market here, even an excess amount to drive the price down even further. That was back in actually November right here. This is where they dumped a lot of palladium on the market to drive the price down, even though they had a record demand. But right before they dumped it, there was a lot of stories out there about palladium demand being a record in 2011, that there was going to be even higher record in 2012. And then, every time they put these stories out one way or the other, they do something to the markets to drive it in the opposite direction. This is one metal I think you should be patient with, and you're going to find out it's probably going to be a bigger winner than silver. But as I recommended before, if you don't have silver, don't mess around with palladium, because it's not good for survival money. That's what's wrong with it. It's a very highly speculative type of metal, but it's probably going to play out to be more lucrative than silver at one point in time. Now, the other metal I want to look at is platinum. Same deal. Record demand, record demand. They had to raise the margin requirements, knocked it down. Still had record demand, and here it goes down to here. They had record demand all year. This is the end of 2011. It's down at this low below 1400. It was like 1370 something, 1380, whatever it was. But they had a record demand. They had power outages. They had strikes, and the price went down. So much for the fundamentals. It doesn't make any sense. Now, recently we had this big spike in the price here because the miners in Africa that were mining, they were striking. The police mowed them down with machine guns. Cold blood. Cold blood. Just killed them. And there has to be a real reason for these miners to be striking, because consider in these countries around South Africa, they basically have a very high unemployment rate amongst the youth of probably close to 50%. It's a worse situation than in Greece and Spain. And here you got guys that have jobs that are striking, so the conditions must be appalling. But it tells you how ruthless the regime, or the money connected regime is. They just mow them down with machine guns. They were unarmed, and they killed them flat out in cold blood. So here the price spiked. So I don't know. Like I stated before, with platinum and palladium, the big difference between those two metals and gold and silver is that you got about 85% of the production coming out of Russia and South Africa. Two places. It's not spread out all amongst the world like gold and silver. So if anything happens with either Russia or around the South Africa area, those metals can fly. Those metals can fly. And I'm talking about gold being, going up. George Soros putting 3 times as much into gold as he had from the first quarter to the second quarter, right? And but platinum is probably going to go up even more than gold at one point in time. It's a risky asset, but it's traditionally it's worth more than gold, and right now the price is below the price of gold. Usually it's 1.4 times the price of gold. That's a historical average, and sometimes it's over twice. In the case of palladium, palladium should actually go to around the price of platinum, because they're both about the same rarity. Now, there's a lot of ways you can rely with charts and statistics. You could say there's a lot of platinum reserves in the ground, and this is what the geological surveys say, and you have all these platinum metal groups, and it's much huge. And yeah, you know what? Go get them. Go get them. I can also state there's a hell of a lot of silver in the ocean. Find a way to extract it cheap enough too. Go get it. Go get it. So, those kind of statistics where they say there's so many reserves of platinum mean nothing. It's the cost of mining. It's very difficult to extract. Same with palladium, same type of deal. And they're very heavily in industrial metals. They're far more industrial than silver is. So, if you're going to be in metals, mostly in metals, you probably should be in all four, not just gold and silver. You should be in platinum and palladium. But it does look like a very, very solid bet that gold is going to go up to some kind of record highs pretty soon. The QE, I think, is going to come up. I've been saying it's going to come about, but what I'm looking at right now is something that even Mark Farber was talking about. A correction in the stock markets, the general equities markets. I was actually saying this because I was thinking, how the hell could the stocks be so high in the United States, yet they're down in Spain and Europe, and even Asia, they're not doing that great. They're doing okay this year, but they already got slammed down. Whereas all the statistics are pointing to a weak economy. And even Bill Gross, from PIMCO, he's talking about the equities markets correcting, even though he got a lot of flack for saying so. So if they correct, they don't have to correct 50% or 90% or some crazy thing like happened in the 30s. They can correct 10%. 10% is enough to make Ben Bernanke do QE3. And that's going to make the metals fly. That'll also support the equities, but I think the metals are going to do better than the equities for that reason. So that's all I got to say about that. Gold is a very, very, very smart investment right now. It's kind of boring. It's not doing too much. It's kind of sitting flat, but it'll take off, and I'll guarantee it will. So like I stated before, I'm going to try to interject some other videos besides the gold, silver, also about health. How to do some self-sustaining videos, on electrical power or whatever the hell it is, and keep throwing things out like in there on a more practical level, which can save some people money and also improve health. Not just about gold and silver, because we know the game. We know the game, and right now it's a waiting game, and it's a game of patience. But it's quite obvious what's going to happen in the near future. The big boys place their bet, and they don't lose. So we know which way the markets are going to move.